All right, welcome back. So today we're going to be talking about one of the biggest debates happening right now online. Should you rent or buy in Florida? And more specifically, is Florida even still worth it? Because lately social media has been flooded with people saying, don't move to Florida. Florida is too expensive. The market is collapsing. Just rent. It's miserable to live here. And today we're going to be going and breaking it all down strategically instead of emotionally. So here's what we're covering today. Why so many people misunderstand Florida real estate right now. The difference between visiting Florida and actually living here. Why location and property type matter more than people realize. The truth about Florida insurance. Rent versus buy in today's market. Why the people waiting for the market correction are now hesitating after it's happened. Why builders are still aggressively developing Central Florida, and how migration, infrastructure, and long-term demand are still shaping the future of the state. And look, this is definitely not going to be one of those Florida is perfect podcasts, because it's not. No place is. I mean, how many other states have a Florida man? And this is going to be a real conversation about strategy, opportunity trade-offs, and understanding the market before making emotional decisions. Now, every single cycle creates two types of reactions: people who panic and people who position themselves. And right now, social media is flooded with fear-driven content. Don't move to Florida. Florida's over. It's too expensive. Nobody can afford insurance. Rent forever. But when you zoom out and actually look at what's actually happening, the development, the migration, the infrastructure, the money still moving into Florida, the story becomes a whole lot more complicated. Because if Florida was truly collapsing, why are entire cities still expanding? One of the biggest problems with these online conversations is people talk about Florida like it's one giant identical place. But living in downtown Miami is not the same as living in Clermont. Living in an older coaster condo is not the same as living in a new block home in Minneola. Living in a flood-prone area near the coast is not the same as living in Central Florida near infrastructure and different insurance exposure. And that matters a lot. Now let's address the biggest complaint. Florida became too expensive. Compared to what, Florida in 2019? Absolutely. But compared to New York, California, New Jersey, Illinois, parts of Colorado, or many other high-tax states, Florida is still attracting massive amounts of migration and investment. And people aren't moving here because they accidentally forgot humidity exists. They're moving because Florida still offers no state income tax, business opportunity, year-round lifestyle access, economic expansion, warmer weather, and newer communities compared to many other parts of the country. And here's where the narrative online starts falling apart. If Florida was supposedly collapsing, why are builders still aggressively building? Just drive through Clermont or Groveland or Minneola, Horizon West, Lake Nona, East Orlando, North Orlando, the Tampa expansion corridors. You see new communities, road expansions, shopping centers, schools, hospitals, and infrastructure everywhere. Builders don't spend billions of dollars where they think long-term demand is disappearing. They build where they know growth is headed. Because let's now talk about the emotional debate online. Renting versus buying. And here's the truth nobody wants to admit. Renting is not automatically bad. Buying is not automatically smart. If you're only staying somewhere short term, if your income is unstable, or if you need flexibility, renting can absolutely make sense. But buying becomes powerful when you plan to stay put, when you want payment stability, when you want control over your living situation, and you understand the long-term picture. Rent pays for temporary permission. Ownership builds leverage, equity, stability, and options. And one thing people keep ignoring online, rent usually goes up. A fixed rate mortgage eventually becomes relatively predictable. And here's the part that I find really interesting. For the last several years, people kept saying, I'm waiting on the market correction. I'm waiting for prices to soften. I'm waiting for inventory. I'm waiting for buyers to gain leverage again. Well, guess what? That happened. Inventory increased. Days on market slowed down. Builders started offering incentives. Sellers became more negotiable. Buyers regained leverage. And now, a lot of those same people are still hesitating. They weren't waiting for a correction. They were waiting to feel certainty. But real estate rarely feels comfortable when opportunity is strongest. When rates were 2 and 3%, people were terrified prices were too high. Now prices have softened in many areas and inventory is higher, and people are terrified rates are too high. There's always going to be some reason to wait. The question is whether waiting is helping your strategy or is it delaying your future. Now let's talk about insurance, because this is where misinformation spreads fast. Yes, insurance matters in Florida. A lot. But the internet talks about Florida insurance like every property costs the same to insure. And that's simply not true. A newer block construction home with a newer roof, proper permitting, wind mitigation, updated systems, and low flood exposure, it's going to be completely different insurance coverage than an aging coastal condo, outdated electrical, older roofs, deferred maintenance, flood exposure, or high HOA litigation. A lot of buyers never learn how wind mitigation works, how flood zones work, how the roof age affects premiums, how block construction affects pricing, or how location changes risk entirely. And when people buy emotionally without understanding those things, they blame the entire state instead of the actual property decision. And then there's the weather argument. It's humid, there's bugs, there's rain, there's lightning. I mean, yeah, it's Florida. You don't move to Colorado and complain there's mountains. You don't move to Alaska and complain it gets cold. Every desirable place comes with trade-offs. The question is whether that lifestyle outweighs those trade-offs for you. And for a lot of people, year-round outdoor living, pool weather, boating, beaches, motorcycles year-round, theme parks, regular parks, the community lifestyle absolutely outweighs the negatives. The real issue usually isn't Florida itself. The real issue is people moving here without understanding the market. The neighborhoods, the insurance differences, the commute realities, flood zones, property age, construction quality, or even just long-term strategy. That's why I always tell people, you're not just buying a house, you're buying the structure, the neighborhood, and the lifestyle attached to it. And if one of those is wrong, people blame the entire state. So here's the reality. Florida is not perfect. No market is. But social media thrives on extremes. People either act like Florida is paradise or they act like it's collapsing. The truth is that it's somewhere in the middle. Over time, the people who tend to make the best long-term real estate decisions are usually the ones who can separate emotion from strategy. Because while people are panic posting online, other people are quietly buying land, building businesses, investing in communities, and positioning themselves for the next decade. Look around Central Florida right now. Clermont, Groveland, Minneola, Horizon West, Lake Nona, Tampa, the Tampa expansion corridors. Builders are still building. Roads are still expanding. Communities are still growing. Money is still moving here. And that doesn't mean that every deal is good. It doesn't mean that every buyer should buy. And it definitely doesn't mean that you should move somewhere blindly. It means that you need a strategy. Florida works entirely well for some people, and it's a completely wrong fit for others. The difference usually comes down to whether someone chose Florida intentionally or emotionally. So if you're trying to figure out, should I rent? Should I buy? Should I wait? Should I relocate? Don't make the decision based off of fear-driven clips online. Make it based on your finances, your goals, your lifestyle, your long-term vision. And if you want help breaking it down strategically, I'd be happy to help. I appreciate y'all joining us today. I'm James Griffin, and I'll see you in the next one.